Hello all, in this very first module, we will learn what exactly is a life cycle of a data analytics project. Again, by the way, this is a in general overview of a data analytics project. So don't worry, we will cover each of the steps in much more detail as soon as we will gradually go ahead. Again, by the way, the very first step in the entire life cycle is all about you have to understand the use case. So this is the very first step. Again, by the way, the whole life cycle is all about 4 steps. Again, you can solve any case study by following these 4 steps. The first step is all about you have to understand the use case. The second step is all about you have to run the ETL pipeline. We will discuss what the ETL pipeline is in much more detail. Don't worry. The third step is all about you have to do something known as EDA or data analysis. The fourth is all about you have to make conclusions from the analysis that you have done. This is the in general life cycle that you have to follow at the end of the day. So in this session, we will discuss this first area, which is my understanding use case. In the next session, we will understand the ETL pipeline, and in the third session, we will discuss about this EDA part along with the how to make conclusions from your analysis. So this is what we are going to learn in this entire module. So let's understand what does this understanding use case typically mean in context of real world. So the very first step is all about understanding the use case. Again, it is often known as business understanding. In a nutshell, what does it mean? It means that at the end of the day, you have to understand your business, or you have to understand what your data is all about. This is what in a nutshell means. So let's discuss what exactly this very first step is all about. So suppose a person, someone known as a client, or it is often known as a product owner, right? Client or a product owner. Again, oftentimes it is also known as a domain expertise. Domain expertise is someone who is quite good in its domain. So he is often known as a domain expertise. So if a client or a product owner or if a domain expertise comes up with a project, so first and foremost, this product owner sits with someone known as a business analyst. He sits with business analyst and have a conversation, and they will try to write all the requirement for the business or for the project they are solving. This is what typically happen in the very first stage. As soon as they will mention all the requirements that they need, right? Now what they do is, whatever the requirements that they have gathered, they will send all these requirements to someone known as a data analyst, or oftentimes it is sent to data scientist. Then data analyst talks with business analyst and they will decide from where they can collect the data, because at the end of the day, they have to collect this data so that they can perform various analysis and things like that. So as soon as a data analyst talk with a business analyst, they can ask a question like that, okay, from where they can extract this data. They can ask a question like that, okay, whether I have to extract this data from some third party API or not, or whether this data is available in the company database or not. This is the in general queries that a data analyst could do with a business analyst. So this is what happen in day-to-day life of data analyst and business analyst. Again, by the way, for those of you who have any doubt with the very first step of the life cycle, whose main goal is all about, you have to collect the project requirements, or you can ask a question like that, from where you can extract data, what about whether this data is available at some third-party APIs, or whether you have to extract data from company databases, or do you have some more sources, or do you have some sources from which I can collect the data. These are the in general queries that a data analyst or a data scientist, depending upon the role you have in your company, these are the in general queries that you might encounter in the real world. By the way, main takeaway of this stage is all about you have to write down all the project requirements that you need, so that you could ask basic question to data analyst like, from where I can extract data, whether this data is available at some third-party APIs, or whether this data is available at some live stream APIs, whether this data is available in company database or not, or is there any possible sources from where I can collect data? Do we have more sources like that? Now, the next step is all about nothing but you have to run this ETL pipeline, right? Again, by the way, this ETL pipeline itself consists of 3 steps. These are the 3 steps. So this is the second stage of the life cycle. Now let's talk about what the second stage is all about. Again, the second stage is as simple as that. ETL basically means E for extract, T for transform, L means load. It means the first step is all about you have to extract data, right? The second step is all about you have to do a transformation on top of data. The third step is all about you have to load this data. That's it. ETL is all about extract, transform, load. Again, by the way, ETL is a pipeline from raw data, because the moment you extract data, it will actually return me a raw data, right? The moment you do a data transformation, it means you are going to convert this raw data into something known as a featureized data. So it means at the end of the day, it is a pipeline from raw data to transformation to my featureized data. This is what in a nutshell this ETL word is all about, or the ETL keyword is all about. Again, by the way, from raw data to doing processing or to doing transformation to this featureized data, this task is basically done by someone known as a data engineer. Because data engineer is someone who is extremely good at databases, who is extremely good at data warehouses, SQL, Python, and couple of other programming languages. Again, by the way, in large companies, you may have a pleasure to work with data engineer, but in small companies, it doesn't happen so. Again, since we learned that the first step of this ETL is all about nothing but the extraction phase, or you have to extract data. Again, by the way, the data that you have, this could be available in your CSV file. Oftentimes it is known as comma separated values file. It means data inside this file are separated using comma. Sometimes this data could be available in your tab separated values, or it could be available in your JSON file. In a nutshell, JSON is all about you have your data in the form of key value pair, right? Or this data could be available in your databases. Again, it could be SQL database or it could be no SQL database. Again, by the way, database is a very broad area. So I'm not going to deep dive into that because databases itself is a very, very broad area. Again, by the way, if you want to think it bluntly, SQL databases are nothing but those databases in which you can think of storing your data in the form of simple table. It means rows and columns. It means that SQL databases are table centric, whereas on the other hand, no SQL databases are nothing but these are document centric. It means at the end of the day, you have to store your data in the form of something known as documents. Again, no SQL database is a very, very broad area. Or your data could be available in your something known as some specialized databases. Like this data could be available in your Hive, or it could be available in your Hadoop platform, right? Again, if your data is available in SQL-like databases like MySQL, right? You can use a query language which is nothing but your SQL. You can use a query language SQL to fetch data from your MySQL. Similarly, all these specialized databases have a query language which is approximately similar to SQL. You can easily fetch data from these specialized databases. If you know SQL, you can extract data very, very easily. It is just a piece of cake. Again, by the way, the moment you extract data, the output of the phase is all about you will end up getting your raw data. So raw data basically means the data that have typos, or data which have some kind of error, or data in which you have some irrelevant rows, or data in which you have some meaningless values or meaningless rows, or data in which you have some missing value. right? So this is what the raw data in a nutshell is all about. Now, as soon as you have this raw data, the next thing that you have to do is something known as you have to do a transformation. Now, let's talk about what the transformation or what a data transformation is all about. So, the end goal of this data transformation is all about you have to transform data in such a format so that it is acceptable for the analysis. This is the end goal of this data transformation phase. Again, imagine this raw data has some duplicate rows. You can say, okay, I can remove these duplicate rows that I have, because the moment you have the duplicate rows, it may impact your analysis. So the first cleaning or the first transformation or the first pre-processing, it could have the multiple terms. The first cleaning you can think of is something known as you can think of removing the duplicate values. Imagine you have some irrelevant rows in this raw data. You can say, okay, cool, I can remove all these irrelevant rows that I have. Similarly, if you have some error in this raw data, I can say, okay, I can fix all these errors. Again, it depends upon the problem that you are solving. Similarly, if you have some missing value, right? So I can say, okay, I can fill all these missing value. Again, I'm just going to give you an overview what this stage is all about. I'm not going deep dive into the technical terms. Similarly, let's say, okay, here we have, let's say, feature 1 or let's say feature 2 and things like that. Let's say for one of the feature, I have some incorrect data type. I can say, okay, I can fix the data type, right? So it depends upon what type of messy data you have. If you have more messy data, you have to do more data transformation. Again, by the way, in context of real world, running ETL pipeline is one of the major challenge. For your entire project, again, this data transformation itself would take around your 2/3 of your entire time. This is one of the most complicated area in context of real world. Again, the moment you do cleaning and things like that, you will end up getting something known as your prepared data, or you will end up getting, again, oftentimes it is also known as your pre-processed data, because you have done lot of pre-processing on top of this raw data, right? Again, there is one more term which is known as a featureized data. Again, by the way, a same thing in machine learning or a data analytics could have the multiple terms. So just don't get confused. You have heard about a data preparation, you have heard about data cleaning, wrangling, data pre-processing. Literally all have same meaning. Literally. You will end up getting a prepared data or a pre-processed data, or oftentimes it is known as a featureized data. So now as soon as you have your prepared data, the next thing that you have to do is something known as you have to run this phase, which is all about nothing but you have to load data or you have to export data. So what it means is that, again, by the way, as soon as you have this prepared data, this data got sent to a big data department, right? So big data department, again, by the way, there is a person known as big data engineer. So big data engineer receives this prepared data and he will export this data depending upon the volume of the data that you have. If it is quite a huge data, he could think of storing it into some big data platforms. If the data is not that much huge, you can think of storing it into CSV, TSV and things like that. Again, by the way, in a nutshell, this ETL pipeline is often known as a data pipeline, because at the end of the day, you are getting your data. You're getting your prepared data so that you can export this data or you can send this data to your big data department to store it for further analysis. So let's learn what exactly is EDA, right? Very first, let me learn what a EDA, then we will shed light on what the conclusion or how you can actually make inferences or conclusions, or oftentimes it is known as insights from data. Of course, those insights must be meaningful. So first and foremost, again, by the way, EDA typically means exploratory data analysis, because you have to do something known as a data exploration. That's why it is often known as EDA. EDA basically means exploratory data analysis. So let me consider some basic real world example. So imagine you are a data analyst or a data scientist at some e-commerce company. Imagine at Amazon, right? And let's say you have collected some data and let's say you have cleaned that data. And let's say the data is as simple as that. Let's say you have some sales data. Let's say the first feature is what about the product name? The second feature is, let's say, okay, what is the order date on which a particular customer has bought this certain product? The total number of the quantity that particular customer has purchased. And let's say the fourth feature is the total price paid by the customer. Let's say I have the sales data and the feature are as follows. Now, as soon as you have this sales data which have following feature, you can think of some of the amazing analysis like, okay, again, by the way, some basic analysis you can think of is, okay, hey, can you tell me which is the most frequent product that are bought by the customers on Amazon platform? Can you tell me some top 5 product? Right? This is a very basic analysis. Similarly, can you tell me in which month customer has bought more number of product, or in which month this revenue is extremely high? Or can you tell me month versus revenue graph? Can you tell me analysis like that? Or again, by the way, some advanced analysis that you can think of is, okay, can you perform some pairwise analysis? Let's say, cool. Let's say you have some order month, right? Or let's say you have some order hour. And let's say the second feature is, let's say, okay, you have some order minute. Now, can you tell me, let's say I have hour as 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, so forth till 24. I have minute as, let's say 1, 2, 3, so on, so forth till 60. Now, can you tell me in each of the cell, let's say when hour is 1 and the minute is 1, can you tell me the total number of the product have been sold? Let's say some count is, let's say 100. Similarly, if it is 1 o'clock, or you can say if the time is 1:02, can you tell me the total number of the product that have been sold on Amazon platform? Let's say the count is 1110. Similarly, let's say when the time is, let's say 2:10, can you tell me the total number of the product have been sold? So can you show me a data like that? Because the moment you have this data, you could find some interesting insight. Okay, in this hour you are getting more sales. Now in this particular hour you can showcase some advertisement and things like that. But at the end of the day, you have to perform this analysis. Again, by the way, while doing this data analysis, you could leverage various data visualization tools, or you could leverage various data visualization packages. Now imagine, let's say, you have to showcase, let's say, a top 5 most frequent product that have been sold at Amazon. Now, the moment you have all these products, let's say the first product is, let's say, some specific laptop. Imagine some version of some MacBook. Let's say the count is, let's say, 80K. Similarly, let's say some iPhone version, let's say iPhone 14, right? Let's say the count is some 95K. Similarly, some other phone, let's say some versions of OnePlus, let's say count is, let's say, okay, 60K. Now, as soon as you have this data, can you show this data on top of some plots and chart? Like, okay, I can think of using something known as a bar chart. Let's say, okay, this is a bar for, let's say, MacBook. Let's say this is a bar for iPhone. Similarly, let's say this is a bar, let's say this is a bar for my OnePlus phone. Because the moment I will see this bar, I can come up with more interesting insight. Because if you are able to convert this text data into some plot and chart, this makes our analysis so beautiful. Again, by the way, you could use any tool, any package, depending upon the problem you are solving. Now, as soon as you see this chart, the inference is as simple as that. You can say that, okay, iPhone is dominating over other categories, or iPhone is dominating over other product. This is a simple inference, or you can say this is a simple conclusion. Again, by the way, it's a good habit or it's a good practice to mention conclusion, because some of your team members are not aware about the technical things of your project. So it's always good to mention that. Again, by the way, from plots and chart, if you're not able to make any conclusion, your analysis is useless. So please do understand that it's quite mandatory to make conclusions from the analysis that you are doing. So this is the entire life cycle that we have learned so far.